Hello, it's Monday, July 10th, 2017. You are listening to Inception Radio Network, voice of the fringe majority. This is Carol Carl with UFO Headline News. At the time we assembled all the content for this broadcast, gentle listeners, it looked as though there were 11 different states in the predominantly western area of the United States experiencing tremendous wildfires. That means people tossed from their homes, hopefully temporarily, and hopefully they'll have something to return to. The most recent rainy season brought relief to some degree to the drought in many states. On the other hand, there's that cycle of water growth, more dryness just due to temperatures and summer, and here come the wildfires. According to the NIFC.gov, that's the National Interagency Fire Center, the national level of preparedness stood at level 3. That was dictated as of June 28th at 2 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. The reports state they're updated Monday through Friday. However, we were not able to find anything more recent than July 7th. It says, having trouble understanding the numbers between the incident management situation report and the fire news and the large incidents map? No, we're having a little trouble understanding why these agencies don't get it together better so that people involved in critical areas who still have their power lines up and running can find out where things stand via ye old internet and sites such as the National Interagency Fire Center. Let's switch now to when the smoke clears, what you might be able to see in your daytime skies. It's a daytime moon this week. Beginning Tuesday morning, June 11th, 2017, you can watch for the daytime moon. No matter where you are on Earth, look generally westward after sunrise and see the moon in a clear blue daytime sky. And it does beg the question, why can you see the moon in the daytime now? The full moon took place this weekend, and that means the moon is now in a waning gibbous phase, rising after nightfall and setting in a westward direction after sunrise. If you look for the moon at the same time every morning, you'll see it appearing higher and higher in the western sky early each morning, all week long. To understand why, all you have to do is think about where the sun is in early morning. The moon is moving in its orbit around Earth, drawing closer and closer to the Earth-Sun line. In fact, by July 16th, the moon will be at the last quarter phase, rising around midnight and southward around dawn. By July 23rd, the moon will be new, located most nearly on the Earth-Sun line, crossing the sky with the sun during the day, and so not generally visible in our sky. But next month, a major exception to this general rule, people in the United States will actually get to witness the new moon swinging in front of the sun, causing that total solar eclipse. Yep, August 21st, 2017. As that date swings closer, gentle listeners, you can count on us right here at UFO Headline News on Inception Radio Network to keep you in the loop. But meanwhile, back at the daytime moon, people have wondered about this for centuries, asked about it, and in fact, at one point, someone who was a reader of earthsky.org regular columns wrote in. She lived in Kansas City. She said that to her, the children's moon was describing that moon visible during the day. The name to her stemmed from the idea that children can't stay up at night late enough to see the moon when it appears only in darkness, which prompted another response from another earthsky.org fan. Quote, I heard a daytime moon was called a children's moon because their eyes were sharp enough to pick it out, whereas the old folks with fading vision couldn't tell it from the clouds, end quotes. And so Deborah Bird asks us, can you see the daytime moon on the next few mornings? Bottom line, in the days after every full moon, the moon appears to the west after sunrise in a blue sky. Watch for it. Here's something the folks at NASA are watching for using the Hubble Space Telescope. Here's the headline. Uranus may have odd strobe-like magnetic field. Annika Weitering writes this for Space.com. The planet Uranus just keeps getting weirder. The icy gas world that strangely orbits the Sun on its side may also have a wonky magnetic field that constantly flickers on and off, according to new research. Magnetic fields around planets, or magnetospheres, create shields against the bombardment of radiation from the Sun, known as the solar wind. On Earth, for example, the magnetosphere lines up pretty closely with the planet's axis of rotation, and magnetic field lines emerge from Earth's north and south poles. On Uranus, however, the magnetosphere is a bit more chaotic. Uranus's spin axis is tilted by a whopping 98 degrees, and the planet's off-center magnetic field is tilted by another 60 degrees. So every time the planet rotates, which is about every 17.24 hours, this lopsided magnetic field tumbles around, opening and closing periodically as the magnetic field lines disconnect and reconnect, according to this latest study. Researchers at Georgia Tech, that's the Georgia Institute of Technology in Atlanta, figured this out by simulating Uranus's messy magnetosphere using numerical models and data from NASA's Voyager 2 spacecraft. It flew by the planet in 1986. Here's a quote from Carol Patty. She's an associate professor at Georgia Tech's School of Earth and Atmospheric Sciences and co-author of the study. Quote, "Uranus is a geometric nightmare. The magnetic field tumbles very fast, like a child cartwheeling down a hill head over heels. When the magnetized solar wind meets this tumbling field in the right way, it can reconnect. And so Uranus's magnetosphere goes from open to closed to open on a daily basis." End quotes. When the magnetosphere opens up, it allows solar particles to bombard the planet. And then when the magnetic field lines reconnect, this natural shield can continue to block the solar wind. This process might be related to auroras witnessed on Uranus. Just like the auroras on Earth and other planets, Uranus's atmosphere lights up when particles from the solar wind enter it and interact with gases such as nitrogen and oxygen. NASA's Hubble Space Telescope has previously observed auroras on Uranus, but astronomers faced difficulties in studying how these auroras interact with the magnetosphere because the planet is so far away. It's nearly 2 billion miles, or 3.2 billion kilometers from Earth. The space agency is currently considering sending another spacecraft to Uranus and Neptune to investigate those planets' magnetic fields, among other things. Jin Kao, a PhD candidate at Georgia Tech who led the study, said that studying Uranus can teach scientists a lot about planets outside of the solar system. Quote, "The majority of exoplanets, worlds outside the solar system, that have been discovered appear to also be ice giants in size. Perhaps what we see on Uranus and Neptune is the norm for planets. Very unique magnetospheres and less aligned magnetic fields. Understanding how these complex magnetospheres shield exoplanets from stellar radiation is of key importance for studying the habitability of these newly discovered worlds." End quotes, Kao added. And indeed, what is the norm for new discoveries precisely? At any rate, the results of this study were published June 27th in the Journal of Geophysical Research, Space Physics. And if you want to know more, there are tasty tech details available via link later at ufoheadlinenews.com. Let's head on over to openminds.tv and check out this headline posted by Alejandro Rojas. UFO witnesses capture shining disk on video near Toronto harbor front. A couple celebrating Canada Day, which we believe is the 1st of July, at Toronto's harbor front recorded a video of a mysterious, quote, "white shining disk," end quote. The reporting witness couple was lucky enough to get a video of this object. You can find that later via link. It shows a round object with what appears to be a clear or a dark center. Hard to say. The object cannot be seen throughout the video. It appears and then disappears several times. The object looks disc-shaped, perhaps even a disc with the center cut out like an old vinyl record. Oh, yeah, we were thinking a flat donut. But an old 45 RPM recording, yeah, we can see that. In the report, the witness wrote, quote, "Me and my girlfriend were celebrating Canada Day weekend at Harbourfront on Sunday, July 2nd, 2017. I looked up in the sky for no particular reason and noticed this circular white shining disc. As you can see on the video, I say to my girlfriend, 'What do you think that is?' She then witnesses this too. I was thinking it was either a kite or a drone, thinking drones are everywhere. But once she started looking at it and then saw the video, she realized this wasn't a drone. When looking at the object, I noticed the glaring shininess of this disc and how it moved across in a circular motion. And then it just disappeared in the clouds. We watched for it for quite a while, but didn't see it again. At that point, then, we witnessed a black helicopter and thought maybe it's following it. I was shocked witnessing all of this. I was puzzled. My girlfriend was skeptical at first, but realized it might have not been a drone after all. And now here's what Alejandro Rojas offers. Drones, often of the quadcopter variety, have appendages that hold the rotors and zip through the sky. This object does not demonstrate that sort of behavior, nor does it appear to have rotors. So the witness is likely right that a drone is not what they filmed. Balloons are often set afloat during celebrations, and they move with the wind. However, balloons do not appear and disappear as this object does. If the balloon is somehow going into and out of shadows, then it could appear as though it is indeed disappearing and reappearing. However, this object is high in the sky and doesn't appear to be anything that could cause shadows at that height. And still, a balloon might not be able to be ruled out. We're looking at a close-up still shot of this object. We're not seeing balloon here. Alejandro Rojas also closes the article by saying the vast majority of UFO sightings turn out to be mundane objects. But once in a while, there are sightings that are much more difficult to explain. And he notes that MUFON conducts investigations on sightings submitted to their website, and they share conclusions. And if they do on this one, Alejandro Rojas and the folks at openminds.tv promise they will let us know. Let's shift our UFO stalking itinerary now and go to Cairo. Nope, not the one in Egypt. There's a Cairo, New York as well. And that's the setting for MUFON sighting number 84981. The date of the sighting is the 4th of July this year, but nobody reported this sighting to MUFON until the 9th of July, where they gave this summary. Saw blinking light, 10 minutes. Moved 20 degrees quickly. Saw 2 red lights with rapid ascension. Yep, time to use the mind's eye to try to sort out whether or not this could be fireworks. The date is the 4th of July. The sighting specifics offer a viewing distance of over 1 mile, an altitude over 500 feet, no cloud cover. The sighting duration was 20 minutes. But the object's features are simply reported as none. The flight path was hovering and then path, and this object shape is defined as flash. The maximum temperature over Cairo, New York that night was 82 degrees Fahrenheit, 28 degrees Celsius, down to a minimum of 56 degrees Fahrenheit, 13 degrees Celsius. The visibility factors were all the same, 10 miles, 16 kilometers. Here's the account, first person. I went to observe the 4th of July fireworks in Cairo, New York. I was facing west when I noticed a blinking white light. I watched this light for approximately 10 minutes. I assumed it was a helicopter watching fireworks from above. I didn't have any point of reference for this light except the mountains below it. It appeared to be a mile or so above the earth. And then suddenly, this thing moved about 20 degrees north in less than 1 second. If I had to guess, it was approximately a distance of 1 to 2 miles, and that really got my interest. This object then continued to blink. It blinked a white light for about...
You're listening to Love Advice with Leanne. Caller, you're on the air.
Hi, Leanne. Long-time listener, first-time caller. Why, in your professional opinion, do you never take my calls off the air?
Is this Carl?
Yep, it's Carl. I mean, we had a few dates. Everything was great. I thought,
Well, when you switch to Geico, you could save a lot of money on car insurance.
Okay, awesome.
You should call them.
I will.
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
5 minutes, and then approximately another minute, and then the white lights stopped, and 2 red lights appeared very close together. These lights did not blink. Then the white lights reappeared. They blinked again for another 5 minutes. As the fireworks I was watching went into the grand finale, these lights stayed until the fireworks were over. And then they took off in an extremely quick streak. Just a microsecond, they disappeared. After observing what I did, I asked an older gentleman who was sitting nearby if he saw those other lights as well. He told me, yes, he had also noticed them. It is my opinion there's nothing that I know of that can move that fast. Nothing that can take off that quickly or stop that fast. I believe we were being observed by this craft. And I believe it was possibly an alien entity, or possibly a military/experimental aircraft observing us. Fascinating account from this witness, and he wasn't alone in seeing this other light. How many other people saw it and just didn't or wouldn't talk about it? Again, a case of conscious contact. And again, it's the 4th of July, and what is that all about from ET's point of view? And certainly we have many more people in the United States looking up at the night sky. Let's look at what was in the night sky on the 4th of July over Annapolis, Maryland, shall we? MUFON gave it a case number 84867. Again, this took place on the 4th of July, not reported till the 5th. Here's the summary. While watching fireworks, objects appear from the south-southeast heading north-northwest. Bright orange and yellow, nowhere near the fireworks, different direction entirely. The sighting specifics here include a viewing distance that's simply listed as unknown, as is the altitude. The witnesses watched these objects for 4 minutes. The object features are reported as none. The flight path was a path and then at some point directional change, and the object shapes are reported to have been fireball. Maximum temperature that night was 86 degrees Fahrenheit, 30 degrees Celsius. Minimum temperature 73 degrees Fahrenheit, 23 degrees Celsius. The maximum visibility in the area of Annapolis, Maryland that night was 10 miles, 16 kilometers, dropping down to a minimum that isn't even listed because it was foggy and raining. Here is the event. About 20 guests were looking northwards toward the fireworks in the distance. This fireworks display was taking place over the Gibson Island, Magothy River, Arnold, Maryland area. Once the fireworks display ended, an object appeared in the sky. It was to our right, coming from the east, perhaps the south-southeast. This object was in a straight-line pattern, heading north-northwest. It passed over our heads relatively fast. We were all on the south shore of the Magothy River. We noticed this object because it was a circle, an orb, a ball, and the color of it was yellow-orange from our perspective. This thing could have been larger than a golf ball, could have been smaller than a basketball, but whatever it was not a plane. The object seemingly escalated up into the sky and disappeared into the clouds. This object was nowhere near any of the fireworks that were being shot off. And then about 5 minutes later, 2 additional circles of the same size and color appeared in the same location. They traveled the same path at the same speed, moving from east, south, southeast to north, northwest, one behind the other. These objects also escalated up into the sky, disappearing into the clouds. We're in a rural area. There aren't any city lights. There isn't anything that could affect the night sky. Usually we can see the stars quite clearly. We also think that we might have heard a slight noise connected with this event, but we're not sure. The evening had heavy clouds, as earlier in the night there'd been a rain shower, and it was quite humid. How we felt? Well, everyone started joking about what these things were, and joking about what we saw. Nobody knew. We all thought it was quite weird. We live on the water, so we're always looking up into the night sky. We often see planes, but this wasn't any plane. None of us had ever seen anything like this before. And we note back to the beginning, 20 guests, lots of people, lots of witnesses. Still an unknown, but you know you weren't alone in your sighting. Let's pick up a black triangle sighting, shall we, from Vincennes, Indiana. MUFON gave it a case number. It's number 84982. It took place on the 8th of July this year, was not reported till the 9th of July. Here's the report in summary. Triangular-shaped light viewed over Vincennes, Indiana. Sighting specifics give a viewing distance in this case of 101 feet initially, and then eventually becoming 500 feet. The altitude was treetop. Sighting duration just 1 minute. Object features none. Object flight path with directional change. And pretty obviously, as we heard in the headline for this story, the object shape was triangle. The temperature over Vincennes, Indiana that night was 85 degrees Fahrenheit, 29 degrees Celsius. Minimum temperature 65 degrees Fahrenheit, 18 degrees Celsius. As far as the reports of visibility factors for this event, the maximum was the standard 10 miles, 16 kilometers, the minimum down to 1 mile, 1 kilometer, and according to these notes, there wasn't anything abnormal going on meteorologically. However, here's what was happening in the sky overhead. As our reporting witness was driving northbound on United States Highway 41, it was a full moon night, and we were passing through Vincennes, Indiana. I saw this object through the windshield as we were coming to where United States Highway 41 splits off to the US 50. This object was ahead of us, up above the trees, almost above where the CSX train tracks come from the south, heading north to Terre Haute, Indiana. This object had white and green steady lights at points of the triangle. There was no rotating, no flashing light. As we turned west, heading toward Red Skelton Bridge, which crosses the Wabash River, this object dropped behind the trees that were to our right, but I could still see the lights at times between the trees. As we drove and approached the river, this object came up over the trees on the east bank of the Wabash River, and then dropped down toward the river, and then up again over the trees over Robeson Hill on the west bank of the river. That's when we lost sight of it. When viewing this, I was turned in the passenger seat so that I could see this directly. And what a sight to see that must have been, dancing up and down around the river. Again, it's that connection between an object in the sky and a body of water. In this case, a substantial flowing body of water, that Wabash River. But we can see where the river has taken us, the river of time, that is. We've got to get going because the current is saying, that's a wrap. Thank you for listening to Inception Radio Network. Follow today's broadcast at ufoheadlinenews.com. Take care of each other. We're all in this together. This is Carol Carl. See you tomorrow.
Okay, Kevin, for the grand prize of $1 million. What color is the White House?